Good evening, board members and residents. I'd like to call to order our regular board meeting for Monday, November 27th, 2023. I'd ask that everyone present please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Backen.
Here.
Mr. Brado. Here. Mr. Olugiotti. Here. Mrs. Rose.
Here.
Mr. Tominello.
Here.
Mr. Witt. Here. Mr. Verkast.
Here. Thank you, board. Next on the agenda is the approval of the consent agenda, including the approval of the regular board meeting minutes of November 13th, 2023, approval of the bills in the amount of $2,052,067.35, and approval of the October revenue and expenditure report. Unless there's any changes, I'd be looking for a motion to approve the agenda as presented. I'm sorry, to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All right, is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Batkins with support by Mrs. Rose to approve the consent agenda as presented. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is the approval of the regular agenda. Board members, we did discuss moving item E1 up, so I would be looking for a motion to approve the agenda with changing item E1 to D1 and D1 and D2 to D2 and D3.
I'll make that motion.
All right, is there support?
I'll support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Brado, with support by Mr. Olgiati, to approve the agenda with the one revision. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Next on the agenda is announcements. A couple of announcements. First of all, this Thursday, November 30th, from 6 to 7:30 p.m., our Harrison Township Parks and Recreation Committee will be hosting the annual tree lighting ceremony, and visit with Santa. So it's going to be right here at 6 o'clock this Thursday. There is more information on our website. We are drafting a new master plan thanks to a grant from the Michigan Coastal Management Program. The township's current master plan is more than 10 years old, and this new plan will establish a renewed vision for the township for the next 20 years. The new master plan will address the traditional planning topics of land use, development, housing, transportation, trails, economic development, and quality of life. There will be a community forum tomorrow, Tuesday, November 28th, from 6 p.m. until 8 p.m. at the St. Hubert Activity Center, located at 38775 Prentice. For some of you, that would be where one of our voting locations is. All are welcome and encouraged to attend and offer your input. Our Harrison Township Public Library is hosting their annual cookie walk and basket raffle this Saturday, December 2nd, from noon to 3 p.m. We encourage everyone to come and support our library. For more information on these, as well as all other township events, you can call the supervisor's office at 586-466-1445. Visit our website at harrisontownshipmi.gov or follow us on Twitter and Facebook at harrisontwpmi. Does anyone else have any other announcements? Hearing none, we'll move forward on our agenda to item D1, which was originally listed as E1. And I'm going to hustle down there. And that is our 41B District Court budget approval for 2024. Let me get there. 236. No, thank you. It's a big board packet this week. There you go. Board members, the 41B Court Management Council recently met and voted unanimously to recommend the adoption of the proposed 2024 budget, which is attached in our board packet. The current court building was built by issuing bonds for the cost of construction. Since 2009, the court has been able to cover the cost of the bond payments and has also returned over $400,000 in surplus funds to Harrison Township. The last couple years have been deficit years, but prior year surplus funds were used to cover deficits and bond payments. Earlier this year, we did approve an expense of $82,902.96 for our share of the 2023 bond payment. The attached budget letter describes legal action at the state Supreme Court level that directs the state legislature to correct the current funding system. But our current projection for 2024 shows a deficit of $919,916, which is the bond payment for 2024 for the court. Harrison Township's share of the 2024 bond payment is projected to be $128,788.24. Our Court Management Council meets regularly, and as the year progresses, we will monitor this issue, and I can provide updates on not only the budget, but also the potential legal action associated with the work between the state Supreme Court and our state legislature. However, in the meantime, I recommend the approval of the 2024 41B District Court budget as presented. We do have Mr. Jim McGrail, the court administrator from 41B here, and I don't know if you have any words you'd like to share, or?
I think you expressed them. First off, thank you so much for having me tonight. Always a pleasure to come back to my old stomping ground. I think that the true story, if you look at the last page, I'm assuming it's the last page of your packet, it's really a caseload issue. Traffic tickets are down tremendously. That's really what's causing this. I think towards the end of 2021, really thought we got through COVID, got the rug pulled out from underneath us in about really those civil infraction tickets obviously are causing this.
Yeah, and there is inherently, there's kind of a discussion when we talk about court action, Supreme Court action, and discussion at the state legislative level. Historically, we think of there's a cost to operate the court, so fines and fees that are assessed to people that find themselves before a judge have historically been the funding source for funding the court. But there is kind of I'll say maybe a little bit of a change in thinking in that, for some people, maybe a fine associated with appearing in court is not burdensome, but for other people at different socioeconomic levels, it could be. And so there's really a discussion, in Lansing about whether or not this is the proper, in other words, should fines and fees be the funding model? Should it be driven by, the amount of fees assessed? Does that inherently cause an injustice? And I believe from the conversations we've had with the judges that, well, we don't know how it's going to be solved. We're probably going to find ourselves in the near future with the state looking at another funding model that isn't dependent on these kinds of costs.
There was, if you recall, when we last year, we were mentioning a case that was pending in the Supreme Court. There's a very strong argument that the current funding mechanism is unconstitutional on several grounds, not to bore you with those. The Supreme Court finally ruled by basically saying this is an issue that needs to get resolved by the legislature. So they kind of sent it back to the legislature, asking them to fix it by the end of the sunset provision. If you read the opinions from the justices, I think it's very clear 5 of the 7 justices truly felt this is a problem that we have going here. I think they wanted to give the legislature a chance to fix it. There obviously is a lot of work going on up in Lansing. I'm aware of several work groups trying to resolve this issue. It's not just an issue for 41B or your district court. I think this is a problem with all the district courts, quite honestly. So I would be surprised if nothing happens, even though that sunset provision is May 1st, My hope is it gets nothing else, at least some sort of forward direction on what that solution is going to be by May 1st. If not, then obviously maybe the Supreme Court will start weighing.
And the reality is, we're able to operate the court, but we've got a relatively new court building, and we've still got some bond payments associated with that. And, you know, I guess I don't want to say it's a good problem to have. I'd rather not be in a deficit. But this is in contrast to other municipalities that are operating in a deficit that also need new facilities because their courts are outdated or they don't meet the current indigent requirements or various things that are being required. So I might liken this to the kind of, you don't have to outrun the bear, you just have to we're way ahead of many of our peers.
Beat the other
with
one.
this issue. Absolutely. So.
And I'd also point out in that same line, once the bond payments are paid off, that's an asset.
Correct, right, jointly owned. So, as you know, 41B takes care of Mount Clemens, Clinton Township, and Harrison Township, so.
Make a motion to approve the 41B District Court 2024 budget as presented.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Tominello to approve the budget as presented. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Well,
Thank you
for
so
coming
much.
in.
Stay warm, everyone.
Yeah, sounds good, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is item D2 from the clerk's office.
Yes. Tonight we have an appeal, we're hearing an appeal for one of our commercial marijuana permits. The clerk's office received an application for a permit from Pac-Man 222 Companies LLC to operate at 42219 Irwin. After reviewing the application, the clerk's office denied it because at this point the township has allocated the total number of permits established by their ordinance. CHM1 was the previous permit holder at this address, but they dissolved their permit with both the township and the state of Michigan on March 3rd, 2023, well in advance of the renewal process for these permits. But as we set up in our ordinance, individuals are allowed to appeal my administrative ruling to the board for, further clarification. I think this is an instance where the applicant was working towards something and the previous permit holder probably wasn't in a position to make a smart business decision, in my personal opinion, because that permit had value and it could have been sold on to the next tenant, at anything. But they didn't, and I think there was some information that maybe people were relying on to try and do it. Granting it doesn't change the number of marijuana businesses we had as of March of this year, right? So there's no increase over and above. But because it didn't meet the guidelines that this board laid out for me as an administrator of the ordinance, I couldn't, grant it myself.
Yeah, simply stated, we didn't want to put that authority in the hands of any one individual.
Don't want it.
Right.
But we do have the applicant here, and I believe their attorney is present as well, so if we wanted to, they did submit their letter and everything, but we can turn it over to them to present anything that they'd like to this board to consider, and then we can deliberate on the appeal.
So considering that there is probably an argument that the appellant is making, is there any objection to allowing them to address the board?
No.
Okay, so if anyone here representing the appellant wishes to speak, the only thing I'd ask is the last speaker, pull that microphone around a little bit. It sounds like it's really kind of directional.
You hear me okay?
That's good, yeah. It just seemed like it was off to the one side.
Yeah. So first I want to start, my name is John McKenzie. I'm an attorney. I'm representing the appellant here, which is Pac-Man Companies, and they're well supported. As you can see, the attendance. I also want to thank the board for your time and consideration here. It's an important issue to the people that are sitting in the galley. And this appeal really arises out of, it's a victim of what I call a game of telephone. Not a game, it's serious, but when we're kids, you all learned about that game in elementary school or played it. And it's, when you have the can on both sides and there's a rope as the message gets passed down the line, some things, the message changes from the first person to the end, okay? And that's really what happened here. This appeal is about 42219 Irwin, which is in the industrial district over by Total Sports. The owner of the property is Boattown Property Management. Two members of that LLC, Dan Wambach, Mr. Richardson, both lifetime Harrison Township residents. They own the building. The building was leased to CMH1, which was the prior tenant. And that tenant had a processing permit, which was valid from September 6th of 2022 to September 5th of 2023. And what happened around February of 2023 is CMH was not cash flowing. They were not able to continue paying rent under that lease, and they weren't even operating, or at least that I know of, weren't having any viable operation at that property. So it was essentially a dormant permit. And through discussions, we avoided an eviction proceeding and actually resolved it amicably. What CMH agreed to leave the property, and what the communication was, what they were supposed to do is not surrender their permit, but yet be assigned to a new tenant coming in pending board approval. And the new tenant who came in is deeply rooted, and there's also a subtenant called Pac-Man. They're represented here today. But they entered into a lease for this property for a lease obligation of $7,500 a month, which is a premium rent. To my knowledge, it's a very good rental rate for the landlord for this use. And they entered into that lease expecting that they were having a permit that came with it for processing. And what fell through the cracks is when CMH1 left the property, they surrendered the permit instead of assigning it for with township approval to the new tenant. And that's really what happened here. So the issues, which, it's not a township issue, but it's an issue for the people sitting in front of you, is deeply rooted, and Pac-Man are now bound to a lease with the landlord, which is Mr. Wambach and Mr. Richardson. They all want this marriage to work out. The tenant has now hired 20-plus employees, who many of the people sitting here are employees. They're local. They live in Harrison Township, Clinton Township, St. Clair Shores. They're all local folks. There's been over $200,000, I think $253,000 infused into the property for the equipment for this processing operation. They have contracts out there that are waiting to be fulfilled. They're simply not fulfilled because they're not up and running, because they can't do that without the permit. So what you have in front of you is a viable company that will actually use this permit for its intended purpose, and from what I've looked at, be successful. And we've given a detailed application to the board that lays out the business plan, the security plan, the hiring plan, all the things that are required in the application process. And we're simply here asking you to cure this defect that happened during the transition period from tenant to tenant. If this permit's not approved, we have to look at the consequences. None to the township, of course, but what the result is for these people. And there'll likely end up in a legal dispute between the companies here, which is the landlord and the two tenants. You have employees that are going to be out of a job looking for new jobs for our local people. And the hope is to avoid all those things. You guys have the ability to avoid that by approving the permit. And like I mentioned, Dan and Brian are lifelong residents of this community. Dan's family, I think all of his family lives here. They coach sports. They're active participants in the community. They care about the community. People that are going to work here are local and care about the community. I don't matter, but I'm local in Chesterfield. I care about the community. Okay, so everybody here cares about this community and this process, and I think that they're a perfect applicant for the job, and we ask you to approve the. And is there anybody that wants? If it's okay with the board, if Dan speaks.
Hello, I'm Dan Wambach. I believe You of you know my name, been around a long time, you've gone to school with my brothers. I want to start out by thanking everybody for what they do for the community, great community. And like John had said, you know, I've coached several sports. My wife coached soccer. Wife's done everything at the school she can. We've always done everything. You know, fire department, giving tree, anything we can do, we do. I thank you, Ken, every time I see you for everything you do. Financially, this could burden people, your decision, or help us a lot. The property could use some curb appeal. This would help us fix up the properties for Harrison Township, look better. I'm just asking for your help. That's all I'm asking. Put my 2 cents in and hope that everybody knows my last name and is willing to help out here. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I'm very nervous.
Absolutely.
Hi, how are you? So my name is Adi. I'm the applicant of this company. I'll let you know a little bit about the company and us. What do we do? As you know in the application, my name is Adi Twina. I started with Calvin Johnson, Megatron, the football player, and this is the beginning of the company. And this company has different layers. The first layer is basically the growing outdoor. Second layer is processing, but the processing is like to create oil, which needs different equipment. And the third layer, the Bangor Bay City is where we do those 2 steps. The third step is actually filling cartridges, packaging. This property is relatively 6,000 square feet. It's mainly for that. So the mindset of this processing, as you have in the plan that we submitted, is pretty plain. It's mainly packaging items. Slowly we'll get into creating chocolates and then gummies. And that will be it in this location. Hopefully we'll grow. You know, everybody wants to go to a certain point and to achieve. We already, since the whole started, we thought we'll have the license, and we had some hiccups, just like many other companies, and we didn't know that we fell behind regarding that license. So we already put it up. Once moved, God's willing, we'll be able to actually get the step 2 from the state and hopefully accomplish our mission in creating and continue. And being part of this community is important for us. And you heard it from many companies. But I'll tell you why it's actually important for us. We are very integrated part of this industry in the beginning. No one knew about it. Everybody started, I want this, I want that, and everybody knew about it. We are also established company for years. We already have good record with different cities, and we accomplished some stuff. So now the people that coming, they actually know 1 or 2 things. You know, they know how to handle their stuff. And the second thing, we already have many relationships with other companies in this, in executive drive and production. So for us to be part of this community, being part of your community, and that's the truth, is makes sense for us. You know what I mean? So, and simple. Thank you. Appreciate you hearing me. You're hearing.
If I could ask before you
Should.
step down, I don't know if there's anyone else.
Any
who wishes to
questions?
speak. Well, so maybe a conversation, maybe a sort of a 3-way conversation about the process. So just help me to remember, there's a point in the cycle when folks are reminded to renew, and there's a due date by which they have to submit their information, and then assuming everything's in order, we renew that permit. So help me to remember roughly what that timeline is.
So off the top of my head, I think they have 90 days prior to that they have to
The
apply.
September.
Yeah, from that September 6th
So we'll
date.
say sometime in June, they're supposed to come forward, say, we want to do this.
Yep.
and then ultimately, if everything's in order, September is the new cycle.
Yeah, well, we process those as quickly as possible, just to make sure people have their business in order, but then we renew it at the same time.
Sure.
So.
And it's, I don't think it's disputed that in March, this was done, so we didn't anticipate them renewing. But in the event that we were to proceed with this, the applicant would be I mean, they've submitted the application at this point, right?
Correct.
And I don't know if you submit your $5,000 with it or not.
They've made payment at this point, so.
Right. We end up giving it back.
Well, it's a non-refundable payment
Oh,
for any applications,
Gotcha,
so.
gotcha.
That's but, this board can do whatever they choose, but ultimately, we would go through and do our normal process with building department, fire department.
For sure.
And all that kind of stuff. So.
Right, yeah, so we haven't done that. We wouldn't have begun the process of asking the building department or fire
No.
marshal, because at this point, it was just a no.
At its face, we couldn't go beyond that, so we did review the packet, everything is included that we needed, should the application need to be reviewed at a more thorough level,
Right, but we haven't done any of the inspections.
We were at a
those kinds of
10,000
things.
foot level and said, man, this doesn't work, so
Yeah,
it's gotta go here first.
That's the ordinance. So, and the reason why I asked the applicant to remain at the podium is because ultimately, if we as a board choose, I mean, really either choose to say yes or no, but if we allow this renewal or the extension or what have you, this applicant has now a timeline to satisfy those other issues with the fire marshal and the building official, or those kinds of things. But also, I mean, it's, we're almost December. 6 months from now, we're gonna be saying, hey, it's time to apply again. And, so I kind of feel like, knowing some of the board members and their comments in the past, there's a question I have in my mind of how likely, come September, are we gonna say no, and we're gonna go through this process again? So I don't wanna tie anybody's hands, but I think it would be valuable for this board to understand if we were to move forward with what you know about the process, and you've indicated that you've been in the business, so you have some idea of what your business model is, you're gonna be back in the clerk's office in June, and you're gonna be back we're hoping that everything is ready so that when September comes, we can renew that license. Does that timeline for you seem feasible?
Listen, yes, definitely. Listen, at this moment, we actually put the carriage in front of the horse. The building is built up, security cameras, and right now, everything is up and running, and now we kind of step 1 and 2 at the same time. Makes sense? We definitely, we started this on January. We definitely weren't in communication, and we're trying to rectify it. You know what I mean? We found out there is a hiccup. We're apologizing. We just fell between the chairs and really asking you guys to.
Maybe I'll ask this, because I think we don't know the step 1, 2-step process, step 1, step 2 process as well, right?
I can.
In the event that you have that township approval, that gives you the ability to apply for step 2, is that right?
Yes, correct. So we already approved with step 1 with that applications. And then once you guys approve it, we call for step 2 right away with the state.
And with your experiences, in other words, I guess what I was saying is that step 2 approval process, assuming that things go well, isn't a 2-year process.
No. To be honest with you, right now, the old fashioned, when we started with Calvin, there was a board, Rick Simpson, and we tried to forget about those people. But
Correct.
anyway, that time took long time. Right now, we got it approved. We going to ask you for those inspections. You come, you tell me, check, like what to do. Maybe I need to do some upgrades here and there. You approve me. Once you approve me, I go to the state. There you go, guys. I finished my build out. I'm ready to rock and roll. The state will take about 45, 60 days right now from our experience.
Gotcha.
And they'll come and tell me, okay. And then with that step 2, I come to you guys. Like, okay, I have a CFO basically to operate.
Gotcha.
And that's
I was
it.
just curious about that,
No.
I was curious whether this is a 60-day, 90-day, 180
It's-
day.
And we're
actually-
seeing those turn around in 30 days, depending on the
Sometimes.
application. And it's up to how well it's prepared. and packaged. If you're in business in other places, it'll probably be on
So
the.
to be honest with you, the guy that actually wrote that application is Josh Weinberg, is a lawyer and he's a partner in this company. So we have a legal
Self-interest.
department in this. So at least that can help, but, and also we have the communication with the CRA that we know the people, it's not that we know them, we comply with them. They
Yeah, you're
have-
not a new player.
We build a certain trust when we come to them, say, hey, I have another thing coming up, can you, but I don't think that it will be expedited. I think that it will be nicer when they'll come. It's like, okay,
Okay. Any other board questions for the applicant? Okay. And if we need to, we might invite someone back up, but any other board comments, questions?
What was our original number of permits, Mr. Witt?
Original was
45 meetings we debated
18.
over?
Yeah, I think we're
started
going
with
back to 18.
We started with 18 with the medical, and then we went to recreational. When we received those applications, we were at 21, and then when we went through the adult use, we ended up at 24, I think.
And where are we now? We increased that number, right, because we
By
had more
resolution.
applicants.
Right, so
Yes.
we said if the logic was if we drew the line at 18 and we were at 19, do we really want to go through a selection process, or would it be better to just raise it by one? And ultimately, I think we were at 18 was the number we put in the ordinance, and the number of applicants, I recall at that phase was 22. So we, by resolution, said, let's raise it to 22, 4 more isn't gonna, and some of those might have even been duplicates, I don't remember, but.
You know where we're at right now, and what number was CMH1 when they forfeited that?
So I can tell you that.
Sorry, I read through this thing twice, and I
That's all right.
feel,
CHM1 was our fourth application, that we received.
Way back.
So they had been in operation since our original medical licensing process. I will say at this point, including the permit for CHM1, we have gone down 2, so we went from 24 back to 22.
So at this point, we're at 22.
Yeah, this would put us back at 23 if we were to approve it or grant it. But I will say, we've also lost, we had 2 safety compliance that are no longer in business. We have 1 secure transport that's no longer in business. So of the total number allocated, I know the big concern had been the grow and processing side of things, but we have gone down 5 businesses. The market is sort of right-sized on some of those things and made some decisions for us.
So we're at 19?
Well, no,
No.
meaning, so I think
We
the
had-
original
we had
conversation was 18 that
2
was
and
grow
2.
process,
Okay.
and then 2 transport and 2
Test.
compliance, right? And so some of the other businesses that were anticipated to be a part of our total number of, if it was 18, 2 and 2, we were looking at 22.
Right.
3 of those have gone by the wayside. So there's only 1 secure transport at this point?
There's only 1 secure transport at this point.
So. But any other
Was there anything else I
questions?
missed, Brian?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
no,
Okay.
no, I heard what I needed to hear. If no
Okay.
one has anything else, I'll make a motion.
Okay.
I just have one question for our Township Attorney. Mr. Huth, is this something, you have much more experience when it comes to these type of issues. Is this something that you see quite often where so a company comes in, rents a facility, opens up, and then they sublease it to another processor or grower or something along that line? Is that common or is that uncommon?
Yeah, no, it's not unusual. In fact, what's happening here tonight, because the industry is new, is not unusual either. I help out with the city of Detroit, and what's happening, because it's a new process for everyone, lawyers are getting up to speed, applicants are getting up to speed, there's some glitches. So for example, in the city of Detroit, there are so many of these types of appeals, they had a separate employee tasked with hearing the appeals rather than bringing them all to city council, just to help clear up some of the hiccups that were going along with the process. And generally, the philosophy's been with the boards to, take a look at what happened and see if there might be a way to clean it up to get it going forward. So that's, your ordinance does permit that.
Any other discussions, or is there a motion? That's it.
Well, yeah, so back in the day when we debated this for a long time, it was all about being able to claw back if, permits dropped off or businesses failed or forfeited their licenses. But after reading through the 165 pages, and the question that I asked, and it was is where are we at based on where we started? If someone was asking, hey, can we go to 25, I think my opinion would be a little bit different. So I'd like to make a motion to approve the appeal for the marijuana permit application for Pac-Man 222 Company.
I'll support that.
So we've got a motion by Mr. Badkins with support by Mr. Tominello. We've had a fair amount of discussion, but is there further board discussion?
No, I just think it's sort of a give and take, right? I mean, there was already one there. I don't think no harm, no foul. It seems like it's an even trade. That's my thought.
Yeah, and my indication, we're gonna be talking about this, either we will or won't be talking about it in September, but in other words, I hope we aren't. I hope that everything goes well and things are renewed and the business moves forward, but, if we get, and I suppose it's, I know from prior deliberation, I suppose if we get to September of next year and absolutely nothing's been done, you start to say like, well, wait a minute, I heard a completely different message in November. Next few months will tell, what the passion is, and hopefully everything falls into place and we can, get things up and running.
Our ordinance allows for this.
Yeah, correct, absolutely.
I will say that when I read through their business package, their handbook was quite extensive, so I felt better about them as an organization, as a group coming into our community, and I felt more comfortable in that regard. I had a couple other questions that were answered today, so overall, I think that they'll be an asset to our community.
Yeah. All right, any other discussion?
I would just like to say thank you, Mr. Witt. The process worked. So, obviously he did what he had to do by ordinance, and it worked. So
Yeah,
I think this is a good discussion, and
And I appreciate the board's support on the appeal. It's tough for me being that administrator to come up here and say like, yeah, we should grant this appeal, because I'm sort of doing it. From the other side, I'm sort of sitting in two chairs, but I think this is the right choice. I think this is a business with a good chance for success, so.
All right, any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Good luck. Thank you for the time coming out this evening.
Thank you guys so much.
Yep. Next on our agenda, item D3 regarding, it looks like a transfer of ownership. Now it's probably way down here.
Yeah.
224.
The clerk's office has received a request from Basher Elias to transfer ownership of a 2023 SDD and SDM license with Sunday sales permit for SDD license, spirits and Sunday sales for SDM license, mixed spirit from Boat Town Management, located at 35550 Jefferson Avenue. All the paperwork's in order. We're recommending the board approve the request for the transfer.
All right, so this is a transfer for,
Just transfer ownership, so there's no change in use or operations or anything else.
so existing business, long-term business going from one, and no part of the application process through any red flags from the various agencies involved.
No, and really liquor control has already gone through all their process. Our building department goes through their process to make sure the building is up to code, so it's an opportunity for us to get in there for that, so.
Any discussion, or is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the liquor license transfer for Boat Town Liquor. Sorry, I lost it on my computer screen here, so
Good.
sorry, that,
That's sufficient. We've got the recommended motion, and you're good with that recommended motion?
yes.
Okay. Is there support?
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. Olgiati with support by Mrs. Rose to approve the request from the applicant licensee Bashar Elias to transfer ownership 2023 SDD and SDM license with Sunday sales permit AM, Sunday sales permit PM for the SDD license spirits and Sunday sales permit PM for STM licensed mixed spirit drink from Boat Town Management located at 35550 Jefferson Avenue, Harrison Township, Michigan, 48045.
I don't know if anybody in that property, they have fixed it up quite a bit too. They put a lot of money, they painted it, they put new signage up. I mean, they've done some work on the inside.
This is kind of across from the water, isn't
Yeah,
this?
right across from, by 7-Eleven down there, Boat Town.
Yeah, it's right next to the gas station.
Yeah, right next to the gas station.
Sort of.
They have done a nice job in there. I've talked to the guys in there and they seem like they're trying real hard to make it. It was a little.
Near the Citgo?
Yes.
Yeah, yep, down that way, yep. So, any other discussion? This does not record, does this require a roll call? Nope. Seeing no public comment, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next is public comment. So we'll open the floor for public comment. They can be about any subject that you wish. We ask that you try to limit those to 5 minutes in length. Is there any public comment?
C. William Bardell, 26-year resident, clean cut, do-gooder boy next door. Clean up, fix up, people helping people. I just want to remind everyone real quick, check out Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook, follow, keep up to date on everything that's going on. And everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Seeing no further public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment. Any board comments? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Support.
And a motion with support to adjourn. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no comment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting adjourned. We do have a workshop, so we'll take a brief recess and